Have you ever wondered what would have happened if another intelligent species had taken a completely different path from ours? Not building cities, not inventing machines, not conquering the world, but simply staying among the trees, quietly and patiently watching. The answer to that question lives in the tropical rainforests of Indonesia. It is the orangutan, the forest person, who has been walking its own path for millions of years. In 2024, scientists witnessed something that forced them to rethink what separates humans from the rest of the animal kingdom. Deep in the rainforest of Indonesia, an adult orangutan received a serious wound during a violent fight. The injury was deep, and in a tropical jungle filled with bacteria, infections, and parasites, such wounds often become fatal. But this animal did something no one expected. Instead of waiting for nature to decide his fate, he searched for a specific medicinal plant. He chewed its leaves into a paste, applied the juice directly onto the wound, then carefully covered the injury with the remaining plant material, almost as if he were placing a bandage. Days later, the wound was healing. No infection, no complications, no human intervention. For the first time in history, scientists documented a wild animal deliberately treating an open wound with a medicinal plant. And that raises an uncomfortable question. If an orangutan can recognize medicine, what else do they know? Because that wasn't the most surprising thing about this creature. Not even close. Today, we're going to explore one of the most extraordinary minds on Earth. A being that shares 97% of our DNA, builds a new bed every night, uses tools, passes knowledge from one generation to the next, and may understand far more than we ever imagined. This is the story of the orangutan, the forest person. And by the end of this video, you may find yourself wondering whether we've been looking at these animals the wrong way all along. If you've ever looked directly into an orangutan's eyes, you've probably noticed something unusual, a feeling that's difficult to describe. It's not fear, it's not affection. It's something stranger, the unsettling sensation that someone is looking back, not merely an animal, someone. For centuries, indigenous people living in the forests of Borneo and Sumatra told stories about mysterious red-haired beings living high in the canopy. Their name was simple: Orangutan, forest person. And according to local legends, these creatures could speak. They simply chose not to. Why? Because if humans discovered they could talk, they would be forced to work. It sounds like folklore, a story told around campfires. But as scientists learned more about orangutans, they realized something remarkable. The old stories weren't entirely wrong. These animals possess levels of intelligence that continue to surprise researchers even today. Yet, unlike chimpanzees, which live in noisy social groups, or gorillas, which dominate the forest floor with sheer strength, orangutans followed a completely different path. They became masters of solitude. Most adult orangutans spend much of their lives alone. Imagine that for a moment. A highly intelligent primate, living by itself, year after year. In a world where survival depends on memory, planning, and decision-making. That kind of lifestyle requires a different kind of mind. And that mind evolved in one of the most challenging environments on Earth, the rainforest canopy. Picture an animal weighing over 200 pounds. Now imagine it spending almost its entire life 100 feet above the ground, walking on branches, sleeping on branches, eating on branches, raising babies on branches. One mistake, one broken branch, one fall, and it's over. Yet orangutans accomplish this every day, not because they're reckless, because they're perfectly designed for it. Most primates leap. Orangutans rarely do. They're simply too heavy. Instead, they move through the forest like expert engineers. Every movement is calculated, every branch tested, every step deliberate. Their arms can stretch over 7 feet from fingertip to fingertip, long enough to connect neighboring trees without risking their full body weight on weaker branches. One hand grips a tree behind them. A foot anchors another branch below. The second hand reaches forward, creating a living bridge between multiple supports. To us, it looks slow. To them, it's survival. But their greatest secret may be hiding in their feet. Human feet are designed for walking. Orangutan feet are designed for grasping. Each foot functions almost like an extra hand. Their toes can wrap around branches with astonishing precision, meaning they effectively move through the forest using 4 gripping limbs, 4 hands, 4 anchor points, 4 opportunities to avoid disaster. And disaster is always nearby, because gravity never takes a day off. Yet moving through the canopy is only part of the challenge. Sooner or later, every creature must sleep. And sleeping high above the ground presents an obvious problem. How do you avoid falling? Every evening, before sunset, an orangutan begins construction. Not of a house, not of a shelter, a bed, a brand new bed. Every single night, using flexible branches, leaves and twigs, they weave together a platform high in the trees. The entire structure takes only 10 to 15 minutes to build. Then they lie down and rest, sometimes for up to 14 hours. Think about that. Most humans sleep in the same bed for years. An orangutan builds a fresh one almost every night, thousands throughout its lifetime. But here's the truly fascinating part. Researchers believe orangutans possess a tendon lock-in mechanism that helps them maintain a secure grip even while relaxed, meaning they can sleep high above the forest floor with remarkable safety. Nature solved a problem that would terrify most humans, and it solved it elegantly. But not all orangutans sleep the same way. And this difference reveals just how intelligent they really are. On the island of Sumatra, tigers still roam the forests. There, orangutans almost always sleep in trees. Going to the ground is simply too dangerous. On Borneo, however, there are no tigers, and large adult males sometimes choose to sleep on the forest floor. Why? Because they understand the risk is lower. The same species, different behavior, different decisions, based on local conditions. That's not instinct alone. That's judgment. But if you think life in the trees is the most remarkable thing about orangutans, wait until you see what they do when it rains. Because this is where things begin to get truly strange. Most animals hide from rain, or endure it. Orangutans came up with another solution. They make umbrellas. Yes, umbrellas. When tropical storms begin pouring through the rainforest canopy, orangutans have been observed selecting large leaves and holding them above their heads like improvised rain shields. Not randomly, not accidentally, deliberately. The leaf becomes a tool, a solution to a problem, a simple invention. And that is a much bigger deal than it sounds, because tool use requires something many animals struggle with: the ability to imagine a future benefit before it happens. The orangutan understands. If I use this object now, I will be more comfortable moments later. That may sound obvious, but it represents a surprisingly advanced level of thinking. And umbrellas are only the beginning, because the forest is filled with food, some of it protected by spikes sharp enough to tear skin. Most animals would simply endure the pain. Orangutans found another way. They've been observed wrapping leaves or bark around their hands before handling thorny fruits, creating primitive gloves. Think about that. A wild animal manufacturing protective equipment. Not because it was taught by humans, not because it lives in captivity, but because it discovered the idea on its own. And once you realize that, a bigger question emerges. If orangutans can make umbrellas, and gloves, and tools, what else might they be capable of? The answer shocked scientists, and it begins with an orangutan named Rakus. His name was Rakus, and without realizing it, he may have changed the way we think about animal intelligence forever. In the summer of 2024, researchers in Indonesia were monitoring a population of wild orangutans. Among them was an adult male named Rakus. Like many dominant males, Rakus occasionally became involved in territorial conflicts. One of those encounters turned violent. The fight left him with a deep wound on the side of his face, just below his eye. In the rainforest, that kind of injury can be devastating. Heat, humidity, bacteria, parasites. An open wound is an invitation for infection. For most wild animals, survival becomes a matter of luck. But Rakus did something no scientist had ever documented before. Instead of immediately returning to normal activities, he began searching through the vegetation. Not randomly, purposefully. He located a specific medicinal vine known locally as akar kuning. For generations, local people have used this plant for its antibacterial and anti-inflammatory properties. Rakus tore off parts of the vine, chewed them slowly. Then came the astonishing part. He didn't swallow them. Instead, he created a paste, a medicine, carefully applying the juice directly onto the wound, then covering the injury with the remaining plant material, almost like a bandage. No one taught him. No veterinarian was nearby. No human intervened. A wild orangutan had apparently diagnosed a problem and selected a treatment. Within days, the wound began healing. No visible infection. No major complications. Scientists were stunned, because this wasn't simply tool use. It wasn't instinctive nest building. This appeared to be something far more sophisticated. Medical treatment. And if Rakus knew how to do that, where did he learn it? The answer may be even more extraordinary, because orangutans don't simply inherit knowledge, they teach it. For many animals, childhood is brief. Learn the basics, grow up, move on. But orangutans are different, very different. In fact, after humans, they experience one of the longest childhoods in the animal kingdom. A young orangutan may remain with its mother for 7 to 8 years. Think about that. 8 years. Longer than many human children spend in elementary school. And every single day is a lesson. The rainforest is not a simple place. It's an enormous living puzzle. Thousands of plant species, hundreds of edible foods, countless dangers, venomous animals, poisonous fruits, changing seasons, hidden opportunities. To survive here, instinct isn't enough. Knowledge matters, and knowledge takes time. A mother orangutan becomes teacher, protector, guide, and role model. For years, her baby watches everything she does. When she builds a nest, the baby watches. When she selects food, the baby watches. When she avoids danger, the baby watches. When she uses a tool, the baby watches. This is not just learning, it's education. And education creates something scientists once believed belonged exclusively to humans. Culture. Imagine two human villages separated by a mountain range. Over time, they develop different traditions, different customs, different ways of solving problems. Something remarkably similar happens among orangutans. Researchers studying separate populations discovered that groups living in different forests often behave differently. Not because they're genetically different, because they've learned different techniques. In some regions, orangutans regularly use sticks to extract food. In others, they almost never do. Some populations demonstrate behaviors that neighboring populations completely lack. The knowledge spreads through observation, from mother to child, generation after generation. This means that not every orangutan grows up with exactly the same skill set. Just like humans, different communities develop different traditions, different cultures, different ways of living. And suddenly, the gap between them and us doesn't seem quite as large. But perhaps the most fascinating thing about orangutan intelligence isn't what they know. It's what they remember. Imagine someone gave you a map containing thousands of fruit trees. Each tree produces fruit at a different time. Some every few months, some only once a year, some unpredictably. Now, imagine memorizing the exact location of every tree and remembering precisely when each one becomes productive. That is essentially what orangutans do. Their rainforest isn't a supermarket. Food isn't conveniently waiting on shelves. Finding enough calories requires extraordinary memory. Researchers believe orangutans maintain mental maps of vast territories. They remember where important trees are located, when fruit becomes available, which routes are safest, which areas are worth visiting, and which are a waste of energy. Their brains function almost like living GPS systems, combined with biological calendars, and they need that intelligence because their lives depend on it, especially during periods when food becomes scarce, because that's when the rainforest reveals one of its greatest treasures, a fruit so irresistible that orangutans willingly risk injury just to eat it. Durian. If you've never encountered a durian before, here's a simple description. Imagine a fruit that smells like rotten onions, old socks, and forgotten garbage. Now, imagine people paying good money to eat it. That's durian. Its smell is infamous throughout Southeast Asia. Many hotels ban it. Some airlines prohibit it. Yet inside its armored shell lies rich, sweet, calorie-dense flesh, and orangutans absolutely love it. The problem? Durian is covered with hard, razor-sharp spikes. Handling it carelessly can cause serious injury. So what do orangutans do? Once again, they invent a solution. Researchers have observed them using leaves and bark as protective coverings while handling thorn-covered fruits. Primitive gloves, a simple technology, created to solve a practical problem. It's the kind of behavior that repeatedly forces scientists to ask the same question. How much thinking is happening inside that red-haired head? Because every year, evidence continues to accumulate. And some of the most surprising discoveries involve communication. For decades, many people assumed animal communication was relatively simple. A few warning calls, a few mating sounds. basic signals. Nothing more. But orangutans have challenged that assumption. Different populations use different vocal behaviors, different call patterns, even different social traditions. Some researchers have compared these variations to regional accents or dialects, not language in the human sense, but something far more complex than scientists once expected. And sometimes, orangutans take communication a step further. When danger approaches, they occasionally use leaves in a remarkable way, holding foliage near their mouths while producing warning calls. The leaves alter the sound, making the caller appear larger and more intimidating. Think about what that means. The animal understands that modifying an external object can change how its voice is perceived. That requires more than instinct. It suggests an awareness of cause and effect, an understanding that appearances can be manipulated. In other words, deception, one of the most sophisticated cognitive abilities known in nature. And yet, for all their intelligence, for all their memory, for all their problem-solving abilities, orangutans possess another secret that may be even more astonishing. A biological mystery so strange that, for decades, scientists struggled to understand it, because not all adult male orangutans look the same. In fact, two fully grown adult males can appear so different that you might think they're entirely different species. One becomes a giant, massive, powerful, recognizable instantly. The other remains almost invisible, smaller, quiet, unnoticed. Yet both are fully mature adults. Both can have offspring. Both belong to the same species. And the reason why may be one of the most extraordinary survival strategies in the animal kingdom. Imagine two brothers, born into the same world, given the same opportunities, but choosing completely different paths. One becomes a king, the other becomes a ghost. And somehow, both succeed. In the next part, we'll uncover the bizarre world of dominant males, hidden males, jungle politics, and one of evolution's strangest transformations. Because what happens next sounds less like biology and more like a Hollywood screenplay. Imagine waking up one morning and discovering that your entire future has changed. Not because you made a decision, not because you learned a new skill, but because your body suddenly decided it was time. For some male orangutans, that is exactly what happens. And for decades, scientists could barely believe it. To understand why, we need to return to one of the strangest mysteries in the rainforest. Adult male orangutans come in two very different forms. The first is impossible to miss. Massive, powerful, with enormous cheek pads that spread across the sides of the face like living shields. A huge throat sac hanging beneath the chin. Long hair draped across the shoulders. These are the dominant males, the kings of the canopy. When they call, the sound can travel for miles through the rainforest. A deep, haunting roar that echoes across the trees. The message is simple. I am here. This territory is occupied. Think twice before challenging me. For rivals, it's a warning. For females, it's an announcement. The king has spoken. But becoming king comes at a price. A dominant male must consume enormous amounts of food. He must defend territory, fight competitors, endure injuries, and constantly prove his status. It's a dangerous life, a visible life, a stressful life. Yet not every male chooses that path. Some males remain smaller, much smaller. No giant cheek pads, no huge throat sac, no thunderous calls. For years, scientists assumed these individuals were simply adolescents. young males waiting to mature. Then genetic testing revealed something astonishing. Many of them weren't teenagers at all. Some were fully grown adults, 15 years old, 20 years old, even older, biologically mature, capable of reproducing. Yet physically, they resembled oversized teenagers. The question was obvious. Why? The answer reveals a survival strategy worthy of a spy thriller. A smaller male doesn't attract attention. Dominant males often view him as harmless, not a serious threat, not a rival king. So while giants compete for dominance, these quieter males move through the forest almost unnoticed. No battles, no dramatic confrontations, no costly wars, different strategy, same objective. And sometimes, patience wins. But then something extraordinary happens. Imagine a kingdom loses its ruler. The dominant male grows old, disappears, or dies. Suddenly the throne is empty, and somewhere in the forest, one of those smaller males senses an opportunity. Researchers believe hormonal changes begin. Testosterone surges. The body awakens a dormant program. Muscles expand. Cheek pads develop. The throat sac enlarges. The voice deepens. Within months, the invisible male transforms into a dominant male. A king emerges from the shadows. Few animals on Earth possess anything remotely similar. It is one of evolution's most remarkable backup plans. Two completely different life strategies, both successful, both existing within the same species. And if that sounds extraordinary, the next discovery was even more surprising. Because scientists thought they knew all the orangutans on Earth, they were wrong. For many years, only two species of orangutan were recognized: the Bornean orangutan and the Sumatran orangutan. Researchers believed the story was complete. Then the rainforest revealed another secret. Deep within the mountainous forests of northern Sumatra lies an isolated region known as Batang Toru. Remote, difficult to access, largely unexplored. Scientists studying orangutans there noticed something unusual. The animals looked slightly different, behaved slightly differently. Their skulls differed. Their vocalizations differed. Even their genetics told a different story. After years of analysis, researchers reached a remarkable conclusion. These animals were not Bornean orangutans. They were not Sumatran orangutans. They represented an entirely separate species. A third species of great ape, discovered in the 21st century. The Tapanuli orangutan. Imagine that for a moment. Humans have mapped continents, sent spacecraft beyond our solar system, built machines capable of extraordinary feats. And yet we were still discovering entirely new species of great apes. The discovery made headlines around the world. But the celebration didn't last long, because the numbers were devastating. Only around 800 individuals remained. 800. On the entire planet, making them the rarest great ape on Earth. And their greatest threat wasn't disease, or predators, or natural disasters. It was us. Open your kitchen cabinet. Look at the products inside. Cookies, chocolate spreads, soap, shampoo, cosmetics. Hundreds of everyday products share a common ingredient: palm oil. Palm oil itself isn't evil. The problem is how it's often produced. To create massive plantations, enormous areas of rainforest are cleared, sometimes cut down, sometimes burned. Ancient ecosystems disappear. And when the forest disappears, so does the orangutan's world. Imagine spending your entire life in a city. Every road familiar. every neighborhood known, every landmark connected to memory. Then imagine that city vanishing, one street at a time. That's what many orangutans face. Their homes shrink, their food sources disappear, their travel routes are severed. And unlike humans, they cannot simply move somewhere else. The forest is not where they live. The forest is what they are. The tragedy becomes even more heartbreaking when young orangutans are involved. Around the world, there has long been demand for exotic pets, and baby orangutans are irresistibly cute, small, curious, almost human. But obtaining a baby orangutan is rarely simple, because mothers refuse to abandon their infants. They protect them fiercely. To capture a baby, poachers often kill the mother first. The infant survives. The mother doesn't. And suddenly, a young orangutan faces a future it was never prepared for. Remember what we learned earlier. An orangutan's education takes years. Without a mother, it doesn't know how to build nests, how to identify food, how to recognize danger, how to survive. The rainforest school has lost its teacher. Fortunately, another kind of human enters the story here. Conservationists, veterinarians, researchers, volunteers, people determined to repair at least some of the damage. Across Indonesia, rescue centers care for orphaned orangutans. And the work is extraordinary, because these animals don't just need food. They need childhood. Volunteers teach them to climb, teach them to recognize dangers, teach them how to move through the canopy, how to find food, how to become orangutans. In some rehabilitation centers, young apes attend what many people affectionately call forest schools. Lessons continue for years, because that's how long proper education takes. The goal isn't captivity. The goal is freedom, a second chance, an opportunity to return to the wild. But even when an orangutan graduates, another challenge remains. Where can it go if the forest keeps disappearing? And that brings us to the most important question of all. Why should we care? After all, orangutans live thousands of miles away from most of us. Many people will never see one in the wild. So why do they matter? Because orangutans are not merely inhabitants of the rainforest. They are architects of it. Every day they consume enormous quantities of fruit. And every day they spread seeds across vast distances. Those seeds become trees. Those trees become forests. And those forests support countless other forms of life. Scientists have found that some plant species rely heavily on animals like orangutans for survival. Without them, parts of the ecosystem begin to unravel. The forest shapes the orangutan, but the orangutan also shapes the forest. One cannot truly exist without the other, and perhaps that's the greatest lesson they have to teach us. Everything is connected. Think about everything we've discovered today. An animal that builds a new bed every night, uses tools, makes umbrellas, creates protective gloves, memorizes vast landscapes, passes knowledge through generations, possesses regional cultures, changes its voice using leaves, learns medicine from the forest, and may have treated its own wound using a medicinal plant. For centuries, humans measured intelligence by asking one question. How similar is this creature to us? Maybe that was the wrong question. Maybe the better question is, what can this creature teach us about intelligence itself? Because orangutans remind us that there are many ways to be smart, many ways to survive, many ways to understand the world. They didn't build cities. They didn't invent computers. They didn't travel to the moon. Yet somehow they mastered a universe suspended 100 feet above the ground. A green world of branches, memory, patience, and wisdom. A world we are still struggling to understand. And perhaps the most remarkable thing of all is that after millions of years of evolution, the greatest threat facing these extraordinary beings is not nature, it's us, the same species capable of destroying their world, is also the only species capable of saving it. The choice belongs to us, and the clock is ticking. If you've stayed with us until this moment, you're exactly the kind of viewer this channel was created for. Tell us in the comments, what surprised you most? The self-medicating orangutan, the two kinds of adult males, the forest schools for orphaned babies, or the discovery of an entirely new great ape species in the 21st century? We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this journey, consider subscribing and joining us for future adventures into the hidden wonders of our planet. Because the more we learn about life on Earth, the more extraordinary it becomes. Thank you for watching. And remember, the forest person is still out there, watching quietly from the trees, and perhaps understanding more than we ever imagined. See you in the next video.